Steelers Nation, there are training camp catches, and then there are moments, the kind that freeze time, where every player, every coach, every fan in the stands just stops breathing for a second. On a hot, sticky afternoon in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, with the sun beating down on the practice fields and the smell of fresh-cut grass, mixing with the sound of cleats pounding turf, George Pickens delivered one of those moments. The kind you tell people you were there for. It started like any other 7-on-7 drill. The offense lined up, the defense crouched low, and the chatter between the two sides was exactly what you'd expect from a Steelers camp. Competitive, sharp, and just a little personal. The quarterbacks had been working on timing routes all day, but there was a restlessness in the air, the kind that says something big is about to happen. From the far side of the field, you could see Pickens, helmet gleaming, visor catching the sunlight, jog to the line of scrimmage. He gave a quick glance to his quarterback, a subtle nod, and the cornerback assigned to him immediately shifted. His stance, everybody in that moment knew this rep was going to be different. The ball was snapped. The quarterback took a 3-step drop, scanning left, then right. Pickens exploded off the line, his first step a blur, his long strides eating up yards before the corner could even settle into the coverage. The defender, draped tight, had one goal: don't let this man get separation. But Pickens wasn't looking for space. He was looking for domination. As he hit the 40-yard mark, the quarterback let it fly, a high, arcing spiral sailing toward the sideline. It looked uncatchable, almost like it was headed out of bounds. The crowd murmured. The defender smirked, and then George Pickens did something that should have been impossible. He launched, not just a leap, a contorted, mid-air ballet where his entire body twisted, his right arm reaching back over his shoulder while the defender's arm was literally across his chest. The ball was inches from slipping away, but Pickens' hand, just one hand, clamped around it like a vice. For a split second, the entire camp went silent, and then, as his feet came down inbounds with perfect toe drag, the sidelines erupted. Players on offense sprinted toward him, screaming. The defensive backs threw their hands up in disbelief. Even Mike Tomlin, a man who has seen just about everything in football, broke into a grin and shook his head. Fans in the stands lost it. Some jumped up, spilling drinks, others scrambling for their phones to make sure they caught the replay. You could hear the first "oh my God" and "did you see that?" before the clip even hit the internet. But it didn't take long. Within minutes, the video was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, millions of views stacking up. Before practice even ended, NFL analysts were sharing it. Former players were reacting to it. One clip, one moment in a quiet Pennsylvania afternoon, has suddenly become a national talking point. But for George Pickens, it wasn't just a catch. It was a statement. You could see it in the way he jogged back to the huddle. No dancing, no pointing at the camera, just that slow, deliberate walk that said, "Yeah, I meant to do that." To him, this wasn't a circus act for social media. This was a message, a warning to the league that the man they thought they understood last season was about to show them a completely different version this year. As practice went on, teammates on both sides kept bringing it up. Defensive guys shaking their heads, laughing in disbelief. Offensive guys whispering, "Did you see how high he got?" And somewhere in between all the noise, you could see the subtle shift, that quiet acknowledgement from everyone on the field that George Pickens wasn't just making plays, he was setting the tone for the entire season. And here's the thing, this wasn't an accident. People who've been watching him closely know he's been refining every part of his game. His footwork is sharper, his timing cleaner, his chemistry with the quarterback visibly tighter. This wasn't just an insane highlight. It was the physical proof of months of work behind the scenes. The type of grind you don't see in Instagram posts, the type of discipline that shows up only in moments like this. The more the video spread, the more the debate started. Some analysts called it the best catch of the year, and the season hasn't even started. Others shrugged it off, saying, "It's just practice." But if you watched closely, if you paid attention to the body language, to the way the defense reacted, you knew this wasn't just another camp clip. This was a player telling the NFL, without saying a word, "I'm coming for you." By the time practice ended, George Pickens' name was trending nationwide. Sports talk shows were replaying the clip on loop. Fans were making memes, breaking down the slow-motion angles, even overlaying dramatic music like it was a Hollywood trailer. And yet, the man himself, He walked off the field the same way he walked back to the huddle, calm, collected, already thinking about the next play. Because that's the part most people don't get. For George Pickens, this wasn't about this catch. It was about what comes next. About proving that this was just one in a season full of moments that would leave fans gasping. About turning highlight reels into game-winning drives. About letting every cornerback in the league know that if you line up across from him, you're going to be part of the show, whether you want to or not. And if this was just a glimpse of what he's bringing in 2025, the rest of the league should be very, very nervous. By the time the sun dipped behind the rolling hills of Latrobe, George Pickens' catch had already escaped the training camp bubble and turned into something much bigger. It wasn't just a wow moment anymore. It had become a lightning rod for discussion across the NFL, in sports bars from Pittsburgh to Los Angeles. TVs were looping the slow-motion replay. On sports radio, former players were calling in to argue whether this was the kind of grab that put Pickens in the same conversation as Odell Beckham Jr.'s iconic one-handed touchdown in 2014. But inside the Steelers' locker room, the mood was different. You could sense it, that hum of quiet confidence, the feeling that their offense had just sent a message to the entire league without saying a word. Wide receivers coach Frisman Jackson grinned when asked about it. "That's George," he said. "That's just who he is. People are only surprised because they haven't seen what we've been seeing every day." Quarterback Kenny Pickett, still in his compression gear, laughed when reporters asked about the throw. "That wasn't perfect placement," he admitted. "That's just George making me look good." But then his tone shifted. "Look, everyone's going to talk about the catch. What they should be talking about is how locked in he's been this offseason. He's different this year. He's obsessed." That word, obsessed, kept coming up in conversations. Teammates spoke about how Pickens stayed after practice long after the cameras stopped rolling, catching ball after ball from the jugs machine until the equipment staff turned off the lights. They talked about how he studied film, not just of his own roots, but of cornerbacks across the league, memorizing their habits, their tells, their weaknesses. By midweek, the catch had been replayed over 50 million times online. NFL Network invited analysts to break down the biomechanics of it, the body control, the hand strength, the spatial awareness. College coaches were showing it to recruits as an example of elite playmaking instincts. And quietly, scouts from rival teams were making notes. If Pickens could make that catch in practice, what would he do when the stakes were real? But behind the highlight reel, there was another story, one that wasn't public yet. Those close to Pickens knew he had been carrying a chip on his shoulder since last season. Despite flashes of brilliance, he'd heard the criticism, inconsistent, immature, more style than substance. He hated it, not because his feelings were hurt, but because he knew it meant defenders didn't take him seriously enough yet. This year, he wanted to leave no doubt, and that's where the twist comes in. What no one realized that day was that the viral catch wasn't even part of the original play design. Pickens had quietly told Pickett before the snap, "Throw it. No matter what, I'll make it work." It was a risk. If he missed, it would have looked like a busted play. But he wasn't gambling. He was setting a trap. He wanted the cornerback to challenge him. He wanted the cameras to catch that moment. It wasn't just instinct. It was calculated. The effect was exactly what he hoped for. Across the league, defensive coordinators started circling his name in red. Game plans were already being tweaked months before the season even began. And in Pittsburgh, something else shifted. The offense began to trust that if they threw it his way, no matter how impossible it looked, George Pickens was going to find a way to come down with it. As the preseason approached, whispers started. Was this the year Pickens would make the jump from promising young receiver to top 5 in the league? Could he be the one to bring back the swagger to the Steelers' passing game? Mike Tomlin, ever the master of controlled confidence, summed it up perfectly. George is a competitor. Competitors compete, and when they do it like that, it changes games. But the real climax of this story is still to come. Because if George Pickens really is the man we saw in that viral clip, calculated, fearless, and unshakable, then that catch wasn't the highlight of his year. It was just the opening scene. The rest of the NFL, they've been warned.